Them being like 7-10 is so easy. Like I could easily see that, but like their floor to me is like 500. Like that is their absolute floor.
Go ahead, Theo.
I think the Raiders. Well, here's the Raiders. Last year, they made the playoffs, which was good, and then they added Devontae Adams, which is good. They in the second half of the season, I believe they beat a team that was completely racked with COVID. Like their record in this, they started 3-1, and then their record was pretty mediocre the rest of the way, and a lot of their wins were, against some kind of depleted teams during kind of a weird COVID stretch. So to say they were like in the playoffs, yes, but I think they were like closer to what you historically expect to be like an 8-8 team. Similarly to how I feel about the Dolphins, who went like 7 or 9-8 last year, but were 1-7 before their schedule got like ridiculously easy. Sometimes like with the Raiders, not that it's to the exact same extent, and not that they're not a good team, but like to just say like, oh yeah, the Raiders won 10 games, they're a 10-win team that added things. Like I think that there may be a little bit more nuance to it than that. But like they have, I think, the two biggest ingredients to winning a Super Bowl, which is you need the passing attack to be good and you need the pass rush to be good. And with Yannick Ngakoue and
our coworker Max Crosby,
our esteemed coworker Max Crosby, and on the offensive side, our other coworker, Darren Waller, and Devontae and Renfro and Josh Jacobs and all these guys, like they have the two key ingredients, but their offensive line is horrible outside of Colton Miller. Their offensive line is really bad. And on the Chargers, I think it's the opposite, where their offensive line is, I think, pretty good outside of one guy, which is going to be Trey Pipkins or Storm Norton. He won the right tackle. But their right tackle is the one weakness, and the rest is pretty good. To me, the Raiders, you've got Colton Miller, who's the one strength, and the rest is pretty weak. The secondary, I had a stat that last year Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes threw for, in 4 games combined between them, they threw for over 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 1 interception against the. I mean, Herbert and Mahomes just killed the Raiders defense. Like the Raiders defense may have been pretty good last year, but when they had to go up against like good opponents like Herbert and Mahomes, they just completely folded.
The good news though is that the Raiders signed J.C. Jackson in the offseason.
Right, exactly.
Oh wait, no. That was
he's out 2 to 4 weeks already. He's already got the Charger stink on him. He's already been infected with Chargeritis.
That's right. That's right. It was the Chargers that signed the best corner in free agency.
Oh my goodness. This is not real. What's happening?
The Chargers had the second best offense in football last year.
Yeah.
And then they added basically an entirely new defensive line, and they added J.C. Jackson. And they added
Khalil Mack.
And they added Khalil Mack.
Like,
and to me, that's like 2 potential all-pros.
Yeah.
And a bunch of depth pieces and a new guard in Zion Johnson, a first-round guard.
Yeah.
And my guy, Josh Palmer. Tennessee legend Josh Palmer, who's going to be a big factor for
Josh Palmer, who's apparently had a very nice training camp. And
no surprise to me. Velus Jones Jr., over there in Chicago, it never fails to take a Tennessee wide receiver early in the draft. Never fails.
I'm just saying.
I think that they where they were last year. I think they were a better team than the Raiders last year. 100%. I know the Raiders beat them. The Raiders fans, well, if they're better, why did they win? Like it's in a 1-game series. It's winner takes all. Like if they played that game 100 times and they don't, Raiders fans, I get it. You won, and you'll have bragging rights forever for that. But
if you had to bet on it, though, Max and Chandler Jones and practicality and pressures and sacks next year, if you had to guess, or it's Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, who do you think is more productive over a 17-game season?
Joey Bosa.
Do you?
Doug, what are we doing?
Can't do it. I don't think it's going to be close. We're going to revisit this. I'm going to save this sound. We're going to revisit this. The theoretical Chargers needs to end. I can't do the theoretical Chargers anymore.
Okay.
Last year I hated the Chargers. Last year I really didn't like them when everyone had them as wild card teams.
Yes.
I said this defense is Bosa and Derwin, and there's no one else. They have no interior defensive linemen. They went through the most drastic scheme shift in the league in terms of like a guy who exclusively stacked the box and played one high to a guy who exclusively plays two high and has light boxes. So they didn't have anyone who could two gap. They didn't have any number one corner. They didn't have any of that. And people were like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a top, a lock as a wild card team and is gonna contend with the Chiefs. No, they weren't. They never were last year. Their defense got so overrated. So I didn't like them last year, but they still kind of outperformed my expectations because Herbert was just so stinking good last year. And now this year, they've got the defense that everybody like. This is the defense. This is what you're looking for. This is when you've added Sebastian Joseph Day, Khalil Mack, and Austin Jackson. I can't remember the other name of their nose tackle that they got. Those three can actually
Austin Johnson.
do what Austin Johnson. Close. Those three are actually the linemen that you want to run this. You actually have a number one corner. Maybe you don't for the first 4 weeks, and maybe they lose a game because of that. But like the safety duo, the cornerback room, they added Bryce Callahan, who's a good slot guy. They've got another year of growth from Asante Samuel Jr. You've got one of the scariest edge rushing duos in a long time, combined with better guys in the middle. You've got, a decent offensive line. You've got weapons. You've got this historically good quarterback. Like, to me, curse or no curse, and it's not like the Raiders are like the most historically. If we're just going about like unlucky franchises, the Raiders last year.
Notable team to really go ahead and make it happen. The Oakland Raiders. By the way, you act like losing the head coach for the Raiders last year was like some like triumphant hurdle to climb. They got better because they had a better coach coaching.
I'm saying is that was weird. That could have easily torpedoed a season.
Yeah, but when the guy lighting your kitchen on fire leaves, you shouldn't be surprised that the kitchen's no longer on fire.
Well, I also think Rich should get a head coaching job at some point.
Sure,
like
absolutely.
I don't understand why he hasn't gotten it better. I don't know why they didn't give him a serious look anyway.
Here's some one-liners. Mike Williams and Justin Herbert will have more yards and touchdowns this season than Derek Carr and Devontae Adams. Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack will have more sacks than the starting edge rushers for the Raiders.
No way.
Absolutely.
Can't
100%. The one thing that I love Theo about is because he's so much smarter than most people. He just casually slips in that Asante Samuel is quite literally maybe the best overall draft pick last year. Maybe. He was absolutely fantastic last year, and now he's going into his second year. He's going to just get even better while also playing next to J.C. Jackson. Like, they have players on rookie contracts playing at top tier high levels. Like, it's just I understand the premise of the Chargers curse, and it was real for a very long time, but it was very real with Phillip Rivers, and I think the curse was probably just dying. And like a last little viruses tend to do, right? That last little reach probably got Justin Herbert at the end of the season last year. But I think the curse is dead, and you have what could be the best roster in the NFL this year with what very well could be the best quarterback in the entire NFL this year.
The most classic Chargers curse moment of all time for me was I was watching a Chargers game. I can't remember who it is against. And I had a friend from San Diego, and once the Chargers left, he cast them away. He hated them after Spanos left, and he became a Rams fan. And there's a bunch of people from San Diego, California, who went to Arizona State. So we were all watching this Chargers game with lots of Chargers fans, and they had it in the bag, and they were on the 1 yard line, and all they needed to do was punch it in. And my now Rams fan friend was like, somehow they're going to mess it. I don't know how they're going to mess it up, but they're going to mess it up. Like, there's just no way they win this game, even though there was a 99% chance they did. And like, while reaching over the goal line, Melvin Gordon fumbles, and they may have been playing the Raiders, and the other team recovers, and they lose. They just lost a game that was absolutely in the bag. And my former Chargers fan friend just like would not stop saying they were going to blow it all the way as they marched down the field, and it looked like they had everything locked up, and they still managed to blow it. So yeah, I mean, it's something you can. I always talk. I'm from Minnesota, but I'm a Packers fan. I always talk about how Minnesota sports will let you down eventually, because they will. But even with that being said, I've still seen the Vikings go to the NFC Championship game where they got shellacked by the Eagles. But the Vikings are an extremely cursed franchise, and that doesn't mean that might mean maybe it'll pop up deep in the playoffs like it does for the Packers every single year. But to me, the Chargers are a loaded roster, top to bottom. Every skill position, like quarterback, all the units, quarterback, skill position, offensive line, front seven, secondary. I mean, we got stars, we got potential all pros on every level. So it's like, dang, I don't know if there's a roster out there that's more complete than that. So you curse or no curse, I'm taking.
We could say there is one team potentially more developed and that more deep, and that's the Chiefs, right? Like they move on from Tyreek Hill. I think they're my pick right now to win this division. I think we have to group the Chiefs and the Broncos together because I think the Broncos are either like the best team in this division this year, and like Russell bounces back and he's immediately at the MVP rush that we saw a couple of years ago. Or it's like, oh, the Seahawks knew something and that this is